This
So
conference will now be recorded.
this is your first document, first policy document, right? मजा आएगा, पुरानी वाली फॉर्म वापस आएगी, बहुत पहली बार मुखातिब होंगे मुझसे कोई पॉलिसी डॉक्यूमेंट पहली बार पढ़ रहे हो, ठीक है? So basically why I have opened the original document, right? Why it is not Chaupatiification? Why it is not cut, copy, paste material? Why you have to be so laborious and go through the 66-page policy document? Why can't you just, why can't sir can cut it out for you into 6 pages or something? Why? Lot of whys. Let's break it into two parts, right? First, let's discuss the relevance of a policy document, and then we will move on to this national education policy. I am audible to everybody, right? Yes or no, please. I am audible, right? Yes. So you would be writing these policy documents one day after getting selected. The entire idea of having such diverse syllabus, such diverse papers in your exam is to check whether when you write these kind of policies or frameworks, you would be guided by uh, a multidimensional thinking, or you would be a unidimensional sort of person. So number one is that you need to be really wide, really multidimensional in your thought process. And secondly, it's more about articulation. Why you have to write so many things? Why it is that you have to write an essay, 2 essays of 1250 marks? Because you need to articulate your thoughts. You have a thought process that is right, but then you need to articulate it on paper. So what we will do is, when we will start this policy document, you would see that the things that we did, be it sustainable development goals, be it 11th schedule, be it DPSPs or preamble or anything else, you would see those constitutional ethos, you would see those ethos of global governance or civil service ethos inbuilt in these documents. Yesterday, I sent a message that these are the few things, right, which can be the new normal for answer writing or these things. So you have to keep an eye for these things also while reading the policy document, right? That what is written, why it is written. I would be explaining that these things like sustainable development goal is mentioned or DPSP is mentioned or other things. So how these are related to your syllabus, how they are giving you an idea about how to write your essays, right? When we would do this introduction is the best form of essay writing. Let me tell you that introduction of these policies are the best form of essay writing. These introductions got width, these introductions got examples, these introductions got multi-dimensional approach, everything you can ask for, right? So why we are reading policy document? Because you have to keep an A4 with you, and the points that I will be telling you, this point is great, yeah, this point is so wide, yeah, they are connecting this point to that thing, the interconnections between syllabus and all those things. So you have to write those points down, right? Now coming to the national education policy. Whenever you read any policy, there are three main points. There are three main parameters, three main points of any policy. Number one is idea or intent. Whichever policy is there, what is the idea of that policy? What is the intent of that policy? The first parameter of evaluating any policy is idea or intent. Second thing is the details. Second thing is the details of those ideas, because as they say, devil lies in details, right? They can be very good ideas, very attractive ideas, but at times details are so ambiguous, or there are no details, or at times details turns out to be the farce, the opposite to the ideas, right? Ideas are just selling points in few policies, and then the details, when you look at the details, you see that there is still the same status quo is maintained. And the third thing is implementation. So three things, right? I would teach you these things, but you have to have an A4 or few A4s with you, and just divide your A4s into three parts. Just divide your A4s into three parts. First, idea or intent. Second, details. And third, implementation. Because if you divide your policies like that, you would be able to write really great answers, because you can give points very in a very good structure. That there are few challenges in on the ideas front, there are few challenges on the implementation front, or there are few challenges in the details, right? So keep an A4 with you and divide the A4s into three parts: ideas, details, and implementation. Ideas or intent, क्या करना चाहते हैं आप, right? Then comes your details, and then comes your implementation. So ideas, details, implementation, right? कोई और समस्या किसी को? Ideas, details, implementation. Now, before moving on, like we do with every document, I would first go to the index. And let me tell you that there are 27 points, and each of 27 points is worthy of an independent question in UPSC. Let's see. Early childhood care and education, the foundation of learning. Foundational literacy and numeracy, an urgent and necessary prerequisite to learning. Curtailing dropout ratio and ensuring universal access to education. Curriculum and pedagogy in schools. Teachers, equitable and inclusive education for all. Effective resource and effective governance through school complexes and clusters. This is just a magnificent idea. Point number 7 is revolutionary. Point number 7 is absolutely revolutionary, right? I mean, do you remember that few days back I told you that the fundamental problem in rural education is there are too many schools, but every school have less teachers, or every school have insufficient teachers to take the burden of these students, and there are too many schools at every kilometer, every 2 kilometers. Do you remember this point? Everybody, right? So they have actually worked on that point. कहते हैं ना, मुंह में घी शक्कर, ऐसा लग रहा था जब हम बोल रहे थे तो शायद वो सुन रहे होंगे. ठीक है? Brilliant, right? Then standard setting and accreditation for school education, right? Quality universities and colleges. Higher education का एक point, चाहे वो towards a more holistic and multidisciplinary education, equity and inclusion. Every point is important, right? So you need to okay, and then see what they have themselves given a different heading for it, making it happen, like how you will implement it, right? How you will implement it, right? So let's start. Education is foundational for achieving full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, promoting national development. Now, be at ease, be at ease, and just listen. Education is fundamental for achieving full human potential, developing an equitable and just society, and promoting national development. The line is very simple, right? The line is very simple, but the line puts huge emphasis on the need of education. So if you have an essay on education, these simple beginnings can also work because they are so dense and they convey a lot. The message is huge, right? That without that education, you cannot have good national development. You cannot have an equitable and just society. You would be a barbaric society if you don't have education, right? Providing universal access to quality education is the key to the India's continued ascent. Now, let me tell you one important thing. What is the key word in this line? Can anybody tell? What is the key word in this line? That shows the mentality of, or the intent of, or that conveys a message. Quality education. No, 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 no. Anybody else? No, no, no. Anybody else? It is not universal globalist. No. Right. Continued ascent. The policymakers are trying to convey that India is already on ascent. Do you understand importance of one word, continued, that tells about your optimism for your country? How many of you actually get this point? Continued. This is why we read policy documents, to understand what we have to become, how we have to write, right? Providing educational access to quality education is the key to India's continued ascent. Continued ascent. And leadership on the global stage in terms of economic growth, social justice, equality, scientific advancement, global integration, and cultural preservation. Let me tell you, this is the width they expect from you. When you say that India will be leading the world, on which on how many parameters you expect India to lead the world? Economic growth, social justice. We are a diverse society. We have been a diverse society for 4,000, 5,000 years. Equality, scientific advancement, national integration, cultural preservation. Do you remember Space Agenda? Right? So, what they expect you to deliver is width. How many of you understand the importance of width now? I've shown you it is written in the examination notification in the mains, before the mains syllabus, right? So providing universal access to quality education is the key to India's continued ascent and leadership on the global stage in terms of economic growth, social justice, equality, scientific advancement, national integration, and cultural preservation. Right? Universal high quality education. Now, universal high quality education. अभी तक क्या होता था? Universal education. No, universal high quality education. A shift from universal education to universal high quality education. This is a shift between the previous regimes or previous educational regimes and this one. From universal education to universal high quality education is the best way forward. 14 August universal high quality education. माँ पासवर्ड जान दो, खिलवाड़ न करना मैं फोन से तुम लोग, ठीक है? हाँ, universal high quality education is the best way forward for developing and maximizing our country's rich talents and resources for the good of the individual, the society, the country, and the world. Tell me what motivates this line. What is the motivating factor behind this line?
Integral humanism.
Right, integral humanism. You should attain your fullest potential for your nation, for your society, for your humanity, and in the end for self. And where this integral humanism is reflected in Indian Constitution? Anybody? क्या भैया गुम्मा फेंक के मारे क्या यहाँ से? Right, Shivam. Fundamental duties, where they say that every individual have to excel in all walks of life so that they can contribute in the nation's progress. India will have the highest. Sorry. So when we say what is the relevance of high quality education, so that every individual can unlock their potential and work for the society, country, self, and humanity. Universal high quality education is the best way forward for developing and maximizing our country's rich talents and resources for the good of the individual, the society, the country, and the world. But let me tell you, if I would be writing this, how I will write this, and resources for the good of the humanity, the country, the society, and the self. Do you understand the difference? छोटी छोटी मगर मोटी बात. How I will be writing this? Resources for the good of the humanity, world, society, and self. What is written? Self, society, country, and the world. These small things tells a lot about your perspective. When I check your answers, or when any sane person would check your answers, if he read these things, you would understand that you are a man with vision, right? And you are here to serve. These small things tells a lot about your character, because you are not planning these things. These are just coming. India will have the highest population of young people in the world over the next decade, and our ability to provide high quality educational opportunities to them will determine the future of the country. Why? Because India would be in the most productive bracket. India would be having highest population of young people. So if you have highest population of young people, what kind of jobs you are giving them? You are skilling them right. But do you have enough jobs? And can you create enough jobs by just giving them simple jobs? You have to make them job creators. You have to promote entrepreneurship at the smallest possible level. You have to make villages self-reliant. You have to promote agriculture entrepreneurship. You have to implement 11th schedule. You have to make villages self-reliant. You have to work on tier 5 and tier 6 towns. You have to build satellite towns or T2 or T3 towns self-reliant and deburden the T1 cities. Then only you would have large scale entrepreneurship, you would have a huge volume of production, and that production will be connected to global value chains, right? So when we say that we need to provide job opportunities, right? Just remember one thing. India has such huge amount of hands means people who want work or who will be wanting work, that you cannot provide these jobs in one sector. You cannot say that, oh, we will be making jets. You cannot say that we will be making mobile phones. We would be doing agriculture. We would be making some agriculture commodities or processed foods. No. The one great shift that government has taken is skill mapping of individual. When these migrants returned, the government started skill mapping of these individuals. And after mapping this skill, the governments are planning and they are rolling their schemes. When I was teaching up the points of Atmanirbhar press conference, then we saw how they have launched a separate scheme for agriculture entrepreneurship, for making micro agriculture micro units of agriculture processing in every village. Then you can promote agriculture entrepreneurship. You can make farming profitable, agriculture profitable, right? So, but to have these things, you know, what is the basic hindrance in entrepreneurship? Anybody? What is the basic hindrance, basic obstacle in entrepreneurship? Race, freebies, right? Lack of initiative, freebies, more. Faith, more. Funding, finances, more. Finances are there now. So one major point is lack of initiative, right? Why? Because you do not inculcate problem solving attitude in people. You do not inculcate problem solving attitude in people, because you do not promote civic duties. When the Indian citizen, classical Indian citizen, sees a problem, he thinks government is responsible for this problem. How many of you will agree with this? Right. He thinks that government is responsible for this thing, right? But what is democracy? Democracy is a contract between individual and government. So for everything you cannot hold government responsible, because there is a set of duties that you need to perform also. But we do not have that civic sense. And when that civic sense is missing, then your own problems are your problems. You do not have that vision that you can think that, okay, if there are no jobs, if rural areas are backward, then it is also my problem, because maybe I'm running a business, maybe I want to do something. So if rural areas are not prosperous, there would be no demand. So that lack of vision, that my prosperity is linked with the prosperity of others. Do you get me now? So number one thing is there is lack of problem solving attitude. We do not inculcate these things as a child, and that is why this is absolutely great, this education policy. You would have seen, 2-minute noodle type of reviews on education policy, right? But how we are breaking it: number one, ideas or intent; number two, details; number three, implementation. This makes it easier to also think about pitfalls in the policy. What are the challenges? What is missing? Where the implementation would be tricky, because education as a topic is in the concurrent list of the Indian Constitution, Schedule 7, which means that central government can make a policy, implementation will rest with the state governments, right? So see, right? Yeah. So the problem solving attitude, right? The problem solving attitude. Comes from the vision when you think that the problems that we see, we have a part to play in solving those problems. And that comes from civic sense, civic, we can say, feeling of being responsible for your own surroundings, right? If you go to a Japan or an Israel or a Germany, why these countries fought everything and they are still developed? Due to strong civic sense of every citizen. The responsibility of the citizen feels for the country, right? The Global Education Development Agenda reflected in Goal 4 of the Sustainable Development Goal. Now, do you understand why I keep going back to Sustainable Development Goals? Why I keep going back to DPSPs? Why I keep going back to preamble? Because this is the policy. This is the original document of the policy, and you have to write this one day. They are taking the examination to check whether you will be able to write this kind of document or not. So when you are writing your own essays, make a point to write these things. Sparsh, bilkul. The Global Education Development Agenda, reflected in the Goal 4 of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, adopted by India in 2015, seeks to ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. Just pause and think about these three words: inclusive. What we understand from this word inclusive education? बताइए बताइए. Hmm, 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 hmm. or right, right. This is a better phrase. Kind of education embracing all, right? When you say inclusive, right? Inclusiveness is on the two fronts. Number one, that it should be inclusive on the front of accessibility. It should be accessible for third genders, females, all kind of faiths, and people from all age groups. So one is accessibility. It should be accessible in all geographies of the nation. Second is inclusiveness. On the second thing is about the content. So someone from Tamil Nadu, from Odisha, since Tarun is here, so Kerala, you know, a guy sitting in Delhi or a Gurgaon, he should be knowing the cultural practices, maybe languages if he's interested, of these states. Someone sitting in Kerala should be knowing festivals of Meghalaya or Rajasthan. So inclusiveness is you would include everything. You would include Raja Ravi Verma, you would include Akbar, you would include Shankaracharya, you would include Padmanabh Temple, you would include your this sculptures and sorry the architecture of Taj Mahal. You would include this Pandavrat in Tamil Nadu. Everything that is there, right? Ek Bharat, Shresth Bharat, because that flow in the veins of India, right? You should not ignore one thing to glorify other, right? Always remember this. You should not ignore one thing to glorify other. Inclusiveness means this also. Inclusiveness means that when the schools will reopen, I would be doing one thing in at least in my village. I would be trying to connect few embassies, few teachers from South India through online medium, maybe from Tripura, Kakborak, and I would be making few groups of 4, 5, 6 interested kids, young kids, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, and I would be making them learn those languages. Because when you are a kid, you can pick up at least 18 languages scientifically. You can pick up at least 8 languages. How many of you ever thought about this? As a kid, you can pick up 18 languages. We have such high grasping power. So later in the policy, we would be also talking about 3 language formula that Kothari Commission proposed, that first education policy suggested, then the second education policy reiterated, then the third education policy. This one makes 3 language formula a bit flexible. This one, 3 language formula was never rigid. Let me tell you, there is an entire false political narrative to create this divide between South India and North India, I do not understand how a land of Shankaracharya can be, divided, right? So that is that. But uh, I would tell you that why three language formula is a tool to unite the minds of Kerala to Kashmir, right? You know, wasn't it bad? Okay, just think about the situation that you come into my village from, say, Karnataka, and there is a young kid of 11 years or 10 years. He's greeting you in Kannada and conversing with you in Kannada. Think about that, India. Think about India that a Rajasthani guy goes to uh, Masulipatinam and someone is conversing, a kid is conversing in Rajasthani dialect. Think about that, India. Think Kagborak is spoken in Kishtawar in Kashmir. Think about that, India. That is the India that we wish to create with this national education policy, that we wish to देखो कहीं confusion हो जाएगा, ठीक है? That three language formula wish to create, right? So there is an entire negative narrative everywhere because that is media and all those things. But chalo, I would be telling a lot of things, right? Because बहुत लंबा है. Is it fine till now, everybody? Is it fine? Tarun, you can comprehend, right? There is no problem in that, in understanding. Right, right. The word is uh, hmm, uh, Abhishek ji, बिल्कुल. I am also planning to learn Kashmiri. Hmm. अनिकेत, परेशान मत हो, सब होगा. बहुत लंबा है, 66 pages, right? So, do you understand what is inclusiveness in education? Yes or no? And equitable quality education. Now, another magical word, equitable. Tell me, what is equitable education? What is equitable education? What is equitable education? Or that quality is not limited by social, economic, and accessibility factors. That when a kid sees that this building is looking very attractive, it is a huge building with whose looks is equal to a shopping mall, right? And he is studying in a simple 4-5 room school. There should be no difference in the education given in both shopping mall type looking school and a normal government school. That is equitable. There is no bias, as they said. There is no partiality whatsoever. You are paying more, so you would get a ground to play. You are paying less, so you would have a matchbox like school, right? These notions must not be there. And lack of education regulation made education very divisive, very dividing rather than unifying the minds of generations, because people think that he is from so and so type of school. There are brackets of school, right? One bracket is Toon or something in uh, Dehradun or some on hills, right? And then there is another bracket of expensive schools in Delhi, Gurgaon region. Then there are schools in every tier 2, tier 3 cities which are labeled as top schools. Then there are medium schools in those cities, and then comes your government school and all those things. So there are level of schools, right? That division creates inferiority complex in students. That I cannot compete with these guys because these guys have learned things in heaven, maybe, right? So that is there. So bridging that gap. Yes, yes, yes. Type of boards. We are from UP board, Uttar Pradesh board. So we are labeled as Dehati guys, as. And I don't know how being Dehati became an abuse. You know, it's really shameful for India as a rural civilization. Gandhiji, India is a rural civilization. Being Dehati is an abuse. So, yeah, being Desi, even yes. So that is there. But let me tell you that at least my board was next level, right? So, yeah. So these brackets, these brackets must go. And how to bridge this gap? How to see till we do not create such infrastructure where all kind of schools are painted in same color or same type of building, what is the way forward to bridge this gap? Anybody please suggest what is the possible way to bridge this gap that is there in the minds of our children, that I cannot compete with this guy because this guy is schooling from a heavenly school, right? So what is the way forward to bridge this confidence gap, this knowledge gap, whatever? Setting examples like exchange programs. Please elaborate.
सर जैसे हम देखते हैं कि फॉरेन स्टूडेंट्स जो हैं वो इंडिया आते हैं और ऐसे बहुत सारे एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम्स होते हैं, तो हम क्यों ना जो जैसे अगर कोई बच्चा केवी में पढ़ रहा है या ऐसे कोई भी गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में पढ़ रहा है, जैसे दिल्ली में कहीं पढ़ रहा है, तो उसका असम में किसी स्कूल में भेज के उसको मतलब जैसे समर स्कूल्स बना दिए असम में, वहां पे जाके वो थोड़ा पढ़े, असम के बच्चे दिल्ली आके थोड़ा पढ़े, और मतलब ऐसे इंडिया में ही एक्सचेंज प्रोग्राम्स हो।
अच्छा, reduce the cost of logistics. What you will get? Reduce the cost of logistics. Which leaves us with such digital education programs where maybe a guy from Assam is taking class of students of my village, right? Do you understand this? It's very simple, right? Exactly. So bridging that gap will mean connecting, starting this knowledge flow from ये कह रहे हैं ये कब कराओगे? अरे भैया मतलब थोड़ा थोड़ा आराम से करने दो काम भाई, क्या चाहते हो? ठीक है, this will start a reverse knowledge flow, and this will give them confidence that no, we can do that too, right? So leveraging technology to bridge this confidence gap, right? This would also, summers नहीं winters तक हो जाएगा, क्या नाम है, सुयोधन, ठीक है, इफ अगर विंटर्स तक स्कूल खुल जाते हैं तो खैर, सो दैट इज दैट। लिपिका,
मतलब अगर हम डिजिटल मीडियम से करेंगे,
यार को भी समझ में आ जाए।
अच्छा सॉरी, मेरे को इंग्लिश में बोलने में थोड़ा अजीब लगता है आपसे बात करने में। मुझे इतना अजीब लग रहा है आप इंग्लिश में हमसे बात करो, मतलब
चलो 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 कोई बात नहीं, कोशिश कर लो।
मुझे सोचना पड़ता है ना, सेंटेंस फॉर्म करना पड़ता है।
अच्छा चलो,
मैं ये कह रही थी कि अगर हम सपोज डिजिटल मीडियम्स यूज भी करते हैं, तो क्या बोलते हैं, डिजिटल मीडियम्स यूज करने से मतलब अगर वो बच्चा वहां जाके पढ़े तो वो बेटर रहेगा, क्योंकि वो वहां का एटमॉस्फेयर भी देख पाएगा, वहां का कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी, वहां के मॉन्यूमेंट्स जान पाएगा, वहां के मॉन्यूमेंट्स देख पाएगा, वहां की कल्चरल डाइवर्सिटी देख पाएगा, तो वो ज्यादा बेटर नहीं रहेगा?
what we can do is, with these digital programs we can arrange a 1 week or 2 week trip, right? Rather than sending them there, we can connect and then we can say कि भाई you can go for a 1 week trip there, so that would give them this advantage of learning the culture, all those things. So equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. When you say promote lifelong learning opportunities, what we mean? When we say promote lifelong learning, Bandi Jeevan, हाँ, when you say promote lifelong learning opportunities for all, what we mean? Practical tasks or Hmm, 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 लिपिका, पेशेंस का होगा प्रॉब्लम, और धीरे धीरे चल रहा है ना अभी मामला। लिपिका, अपनी बहन से बोल दो कि वहाँ बारिश हो रही है, इस वजह से जो 2 लोग आने वाले थे वो आ नहीं पाए। माफी चाहते हैं हम, शुरुआत में थोड़ा दर्द होता है किसी भी चीज में, ठीक है। आई वुड पर्सनली से सॉरी। राइट, सो when you say lifelong learning opportunities for all, it means skilling, reskilling, and employing. Lifelong learning opportunities, it means skilling, reskilling, and then employing. Let me elaborate. Suppose you are a army veteran, right? You took VRS in the age of 35, voluntary retirement. Now, your one job, you have done one kind of job, but you have life, so you need to be productive, right? So what you need? Suppose you thought that, okay, there is market for some e-commerce or something. So you thought it is better to have a simple knowledge of coding before venturing into e-commerce, because you need to make a team, then you need to guide them, or at least uh, understand that what they are doing. So what you thought that, okay, I would enroll myself into a coding program that will make me learn simple basics of coding. That is reskilling. That is lifelong learning opportunities. And then once you are done with your course, you can have a job, or you can start your own venture. It's not only for coding, but suppose you want to start a venture into food processing, then you would also need training for how to process food, how to conserve food, right? Reskilling. Then you can start your own venture. So when you say lifelong learning opportunities, your life do not end with retirements. Like I have a friend whose father was in bank for some 36, 37 years. And when he retired, he lost his confidence. He didn't know anything else. So skill, yeah, skill, upskill and reskill. हाँ, ये है exact phrase, right? The Prime Minister often use this phrase: skill, upskill, reskill, right? Skill, upgrading your skill, and reskilling your skill, right? So at the age of 60, when you have 30 years of your life left, what happens is we are unproductive. We are unproductive. Why? Because we do not focus on this important point of the reskilling. Do you understand this? Right? So that is what we mean by promoting lifelong learning opportunities for all. So do you understand now sustainable development goal number 4? If there is any doubt, please ask. Is it clear, people? Yes or no? Everybody, is it clear? जोश कहाँ है? जोश, जोश की कमी है. ये 3 बार एस लिख देने से जोश थोड़ी आ जाता है. जोर से बोलिए. Such a lofty goal, such a lofty goal will require the entire education system to be reconfigured to support and foster learning. Reconfigured to support and foster learning. Now, another word. What is the difference between education and learning? Tell me, what is the difference between education and learning? बताइए.
Education has stamina, learning has speed.
Or anybody else? बिल्कुल. Learning is experience, learning where you can apply your education or knowledge. Basically, I am educated. That enables me to learn from various sources. Yes, great. Education is the basis of learning. Education is the basis of learning. Right? 1 मिनट का ब्रेक, उसके बाद आगे बढ़ते हैं भाई. 1 मिनट का ब्रेक. हाँ भाई. जोश का बना रहने के लिए खाते पीते रहना जरूरी है. चलिए.
I have a doubt
word-
in equitable
Hmm.
education.
Hmm.
So, at any point in time, like which, however developed we might become in future, the resources for higher education would be limited. Like to build a good engineering institutions, to build a good, let's say, build good scientific laboratories, you need a lot of resources. So there would need to be a certain element of merit in that sphere of education, that someone who is eligible and qualified would get access to those resources. So my question is that where should equitability stop and merit begin? Should it be at class 10th level? Should it be at class 12th level? Should it be at college level?
See, the real answer lies in the next few pages of policy, but I want to tilt this argument. So the question is, we have limited resources for higher education. So who is getting access to those resources should be decided on the merit. Now there is a simple flaw with the logic of merit, and let me tell you how to overcome that flaw. Punisher, same point पर आ रहा है. The problem with merit is the starting points are different. The starting points are different. Why? A guy might have access to some really great institutions in the early age of his life, so automatically he would have that merit. So how we compensate this lack of quality resources at the very early stage? Because see, what is merit at 12th level? The merit at your intermediate level or your graduation level, it is built on your foundation of your initial years, like your primary and then secondary. And so there is a model, there is a scientific model. What is that model? So a scientist says, if you invest $1 at the initial stages of education, right, that is primary level till the age of 12 and 13, you can have return equivalent to $18. If you invest $1 in primary education, you can have returns up to $18. If you invest $1 at secondary level, you can have return up to $2. If you invest $1 at the level of higher education, you would have returns equal to $1. That is a model which is given by few scientists in their research. So my point is, there can be some few plus minuses in this model, that maybe you can say, no, from higher education we can get $5 out of $1, from secondary we can get $7 out of $1. You can say, no, from the initial education you would only get $13 from $1, but the point remains the same. If you invest at the early education level, the cognitive skills the grasp of student, the basic learning capabilities will grow. That will form merit one day. Then you can say that now we would start meritocracy. You can say that equitability will apply only on the primary and secondary level. If you are coming to the higher education, let's do this by merit. Abhishek ji.
So basically, lift everyone up to the same standard and then start filtering out people.
Right. And this policy is a big step forward in lifting everyone, interconnecting everyone, filling those gaps. Now, that can be a shrewd political debate of that what this that you take away reservations and all that. That is a shrewd political debate, right? You would achieve a certain level, certain degree of equitability. Absolute equality is an illusion, right? You cannot have that. You cannot have that. You can never have that, right? But in the primary level, when we are saying that we would give $18, which means that we would be spending on institutions, we would be spending on food, we would be spending on nutrition of child and everything. That is why, that is how you would build the cognitive skill of Janta. Everybody, do you understand my point? Right? So, and I have many points to say on this, but let's keep that for later stages of the policy. Because when you say that higher education, so higher education is also, they have broken down the higher education into many levels. Like Punisher was saying, Punisher, send that message in to everyone. Right? Punisher, send that message to everyone. The world is undergoing the world is undergoing rapid changes in the knowledge landscape with various dramatic scientific and technological advances such as the rise of big data, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Many unskilled jobs worldwide may be taken over by machines, while the need for a skilled workforce, particularly involving mathematics, computer sciences, and data sciences, in conjunction with multidisciplinary abilities across the sciences, social sciences, and humanities, will be increasingly in greater demand. Learn one thing from how they are writing. They are breaking down very complex things. They are breaking down very complex things into very smaller parts. And whenever there is whenever there are specific terms like machine learning, like big data, like artificial intelligence and whatnot, they do not go into details because you are a generalist, right? There is a paper of general studies, right? There is a paper of general studies, not of some specialized subject. So see that how simply they have written things, right? That machines will take over, and since now computer and machine learning would be artificial intelligence and machine learning would be done, so multidisciplinary jobs will be coming up, right? With climate change increasing pollution and depleting natural resources, there will be a sizable shift in how we meet the world's energy, water, food, and sanitation needs. Again, resulting in the need for new skilled labor, particularly in biology, chemistry, physics, agriculture, climate sciences, and social sciences. What they are saying that since our um carbon footprint is high, since we are applying no brains in natural resource management, so we will be needing new skilled labor in these fields about natural resource management, from agriculture to social sciences to physics and agriculture. The growing emergence of epidemics and pandemics will also call for collaborative research in infectious disease management and development of vaccines, and the resultant social issues heightens the need for multidisciplinary learning. See, if you are a doctor today, then you need to be really good at tackling emotions of your own patients in the, especially in the pandemic, because people are living alone, people are living in this say quarantine and all. So the mental levels are shaken. So you may be doctor of surgery, but you also have to learn this skill of managing the emotions of your student patients. There will be a growing demand for humanities and art as India moves towards becoming a developed country as well as the three largest economies in the world. There would be a growing demand for humanities and art from, because people would want to learn the culture of India, the languages and the diversity of Indians, right? So now tell me one thing. Suppose this is an essay of education, and do you see the width of the topic? Do you see they are going into such complex things? This is the diversity that I want you people to learn. That is why I'm making you read this document. What about mental problems of doctors? Exactly. So they need to have a team even among themselves also, right? Where they can consult or they can talk to these doctors. So just think about the diversity that the document, this policy is portraying, and that you also have to give while writing your own essays and answers and other things. There. Indeed, with the quickly changing employment landscape and global ecosystem, it is becoming increasingly critical that children not only learn, but more importantly, learn how to learn. What we do here, that I always say that you need to understand how to study than what to study, how to learn than what to learn. Because when you grapple with many concepts, you need to understand that what is important, how I will approach this topic, what words I would take out, how to learn. Let me tell you one thing more about learning. So I teach you about agriculture and many problems. That is something that I read from some books or some sources. When I went to the field, or when I go to the villages and I see the challenges, see the problems that they are facing, that is where my education helps me to learn new things. When they tell that these are my problems, I can relate it with my education, because I have read that okay, there is a problem of excessive pH or soil salinity or whatever, and they say ki this problem is happening, I don't know why. So I know why this problem is happening, but I have never seen that problem actually in front of me. Now I can see that problem, I can see the impact, I can see why this is happening. Why, as in why pH is rising, because that farmer is making some mistakes, and what can be possible interventions in that problem. What can be possible interventions in that problem at which stage? That is learning. And that is what happens when you connect people to the field, or people when you send students to learn from the field. Indeed, with the quickly changing employment landscape and global ecosystem, it is becoming increasingly critical that children not only learn, but more importantly, learn how to learn. Education thus must move towards less content and more towards learning about how to think critically and solve problems, how to be creative, how to be multidisciplinary, how to innovate, adapt, and absorb new material in novel and changing fields. Can you relate with this? Can you people relate with this? How to think critically, right? Solve problems, how to be creative, multidisciplinary, space edgy. Lipika, we don't think about one aspect only, multidimensional. How to innovate, adapt, absorb new material in novel and changing fields. So, when you think about these things, moving towards less content, moving towards how to think critically, how to solve problems, how to be creative, multidisciplinary, how to innovate, adapt, and absorb. So now this is important for a civil servant. Why? Ethics paper 4, you read about being creative while solving problems, right? You read about engaging with multiple stakeholders. You read about being innovative. You read about learning on the go, learning from your field experiences, learning from your problems, learning from changing fields. Pedagogy must evolve to make education more experimental, holistic, integrated, inquiry driven, discovery oriented, learner centered, discussion based, flexible, and of course, enjoyable. That is the core thing. Education must be experimental. You want to teach somebody about torque, how many of you understand torque or acceleration? You can show them, that this is torque. You can have a bike there and you can actually tell them that this is acceleration, right? Or this is torque, right? Practical learning. Or you can make a line of few students, and actually then you can tell sine wave, right? Or you can tell about P wave and S wave, right? So how to draw line between less content and diverse content? That is something that is uh, like your books should not be bulky, right? You can write down few exercises in your books, and you can ask teacher to make students do those exercises, and then write down the answers based on those exercises. There are few exercises, but teachers don't take them seriously, right? The curriculum must include basic arts, humanities, games, sports, fitness, languages, literature, culture, and values, in addition to science and mathematics, to develop all aspects and capabilities of learners and make education more well-rounded, useful, and fulfilling to the learner. The curriculum must include basic arts, crafts, humanities, games, sports, fitness, languages, literature, culture, and values. A diverse curriculum, because when we talk about quality of democracy, what we say that quality of democracy lies on the informativeness of voter, yes or no? And how voters would be informative? When they have a diverse reading and diverse curriculum. Right? Education must build character, learners to be ethical, rational, compassionate, and caring, while at the same time prepare them for gainful, fulfilling employment. That is the entire crux of what this policy wants you to become. It should build character. It should enable learners to be ethical, rational, compassionate, caring, while at the same time prepare them for a gainful, fulfilling employment. Which means that with building character, it would also make you employable. With building character, it would also make you employable in the relevant skills that are there in the job market. Yes or no? The gap between the current state of learning outcomes and what is required must be bridged through undertaking major reforms that bring the highest quality, equity, and integrity into the system, from early childhood care and education through higher education. कह रहे हैं कि भाई जो एक गैप है आज की जो लर्निंग की स्टेट है उसमें आज की जो लर्निंग की स्टेट है उसमें और जो रिक्वायर्ड है, what is required and what is current state of learning outcomes, and how you bridge that gap. You bridge that gap by undertaking major reforms from early childhood care to higher education, right? The aim must be for India to have an education system by 2040 that is second to none, with equitable access to the highest quality education for all learners, regardless of social or economic. What is the aim for India? To have an education system by 2040 that gives you equitable access of high quality education to all learners, regardless of they are poor or rich or what. Lipika, bolo.
पिछले पैराग्राफ में प्रिपेयर देम फॉर फुलफिलिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट लिखा था, तो उनकी जो एम्प्लॉयमेंट चॉइसेस होगी बहुत ज्यादा डाइवर्स होंगी, तो उस तरह से फिर एम्प्लॉयमेंट कैसे जनरेट होगी?
दोबारा बोलो।
प्रिपेयर देम फॉर फुलफिलिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट, तो मतलब हर बंदे की बहुत डाइवर्स चॉइसेस होती है फुलफिलिंग एम्प्लॉयमेंट का मतलब, तो अब हर बंदा के लिए हम अलग से मतलब इतना डाइवर्स एम्प्लॉयमेंट कैसे जनरेट करेंगे?
अरे डाइवर्स एम्प्लॉयमेंट अपने आप होगा जब जो है when you would have such diverse educational programs, then you would have jobs of these things also, because you have a cadre of services that you can give, and then the respective companies of those streams would come and invest in your own market. Any MNC wants skilled labor, so if you are creating that labor, then they will come and they will employ them. When you change your education system, when you make it diverse, this is the first step to making your diversifying your own economy. How many of you understand this? Multinational company.
तो अब सर like for example जैसे वेस्ट में sorry there's a problem in west where like people who have exceptional degrees in humanities, like people holding a masters in philosophy, masters in let's say social sciences, etc., are working in retail and restaurants as servers because there is no like adequate employment opportunity for them. So how will we generate such a diverse employment that is fulfilling for everyone?
The problem with West is the things like agriculture entrepreneurship at the small level is missing, and West and Western economies, due to the early industrialization, they relied on excessive production, that too mechanical. Due to that, there is large scale problem of unemployment and all those things. Plus, because they were producing surplus, they were dependent on external markets, and there is a problem of diversification. If you will go through the Indian export to the United States and Indian imports from the United States, then you will see a trend that we are importing similar kind of goods, but we exporting very diverse kind of goods, right? If you want, I can show you. It's not possible right now, but you can see that. So we have really a diverse production assembly because we had rich traditions of handicrafts, artisans, and that was somehow embedded in our culture, in our social mobility, which were later termed as castes. So we have a rich cultural tradition of diversification of livelihood, which still goes on. And number two, we were always, due to monsoon and other geographical factors, we are leading in many such commodities which are dependent on agriculture. So, due to our geographical factors, our cultural factors, those things are already there. We just need one thing, and that is SCALE, scale, right? Why do you have any reason why India can't be number one in honey production? Is it possible or not? India can be number one in honey production. Such huge landmass, right? But we only want to be number one in wheat. Why? Yes, yes, yes. Why not? They don't need to modify, but those companies only which are making these things will come into your country. Lipika. Plus, remember one thing, that India is going to be a nation that is driven by domestic demand and demand of the uh, larger third world. I'm not saying that India will not penetrate into the developed world or that thing, but this would be the growth engine for India. Yes, yes, it can be, right? So is it fine? अभी तक सब ठीक है? एक मिनट का ब्रेक, फिर आगे बढ़ते हैं. The aim must be that this national education policy is the first education policy of 21st century and aims to address the many growing developmental imperatives of our country. The policy proposes the revision and revamping of all aspects of the educational structure, including its regulation and governance, to create a new system that is aligned with the aspirational goals of 21st century education, including Sustainable Development Goal number 4, while building it upon India's traditions and value systems. The traditions that we are talking about, the rich artistic traditions, handicraft, all those things, right? The national education policy lays particular emphasis on the development of the creative potential of each individual, right? You talk about empowering every single individual. You talk about unlocking the potential of every individual, which means that you are not leaving anyone behind, which means that the education policy is inclusive in its core idea. Yes or no? It is based on the principle that education must develop not only cognitive capacities, both the foundational capacities of literacy and numeracy, and higher order cognitive capacities such as critical thinking and problem solving, but also social, ethical, and emotional capacities and dispositions. अब एक बात बताओ आप. Tell me one thing, I was saying the same thing, that we do not create this capability of problem solving. Yes or no? We do not. We lack this thing of this attitude of problem solving. We lack this attitude of critical thinking. If we see a problem, why it is happening, what are the responsible factors? So we are moving from literacy, we are moving from literacy to the education, right? Literacy is that you can read and write your name, but now we are moving away from literacy towards critical thinking, problem solving, and other interpersonal skills like social, ethical, and emotional capabilities. The rich heritage of ancient and eternal Indian knowledge. Now, today we say lifelong learning, right? And all the ancient systems, acharyas, and all those things, those people, they always emphasized on this eternal knowledge. And thought has been a guiding light for this policy. The pursuit of knowledge, gyan, wisdom, pragya, and truth was always considered in Indian thought and philosophy as the highest human goal. The pursuit of knowledge, Shankaracharya, wisdom, and truth was always considered in Indian thought and philosophy as the highest human goal. Let me add one bit to this. What is the basis of truth? Anybody? What is the basis of truth? Facts. Right. So what is the basis of truth? Facts. Like, what is truth? Things that you see around, right? That is truth. And why you see things around, why the things around you are not collapsing, why there is no jaljala or kayamat ki raat, right? Why it is, everything is aligned in nature? Why? Due to balance of human and nature, due to ecological balance, you see the truth. Why you, what is the basis of truth? Truth is the things that you see around. Truth is the things that you see around yourself, and why things around you are not collapsing, why there is something to see, existence, why things exist, due to the ecological balance. So what Rigveda says, the Aadhar, the basis of Satya is Rit, that is ecological balance. Rit is Dharma in Rigveda. Rit is Dharma in Rigveda, right? So Rit is your duty, protecting, creating that ecological balance is your duty according to Rigveda, because this duty is the Aadhar of truth, Satya. Only when there would be ecological balance, you can have earth, you can live, you can have your own existence. Only when you can have your existence, you can see truth. So if truth is facts, facts that you see around, the basis of that truth is Rit, and that is why Rit is Dharma. Mool Dharma is Rit, and due to that Mool Dharma you have Satya. So थोड़ी फिलोसफी, ठीक है? बात समझ में आती है? Do you get it, right? Yes or no? भारी हो गया, बाउंसर्स थे. Let's go to newspaper now.